Start date, October 2030, Common Era. Starship, SS Planet Joyful Earth. Captain's log. Amid scenes of wild rejoicing, the United Nations announced that global warming has been pegged to below 1.5 degrees centigrade. The global Green New Deal, with its twin emphases on climate and social justice, has paid dividends. The light in young people's eyes does not go out as they celebrate humanity's oneness with this planet. Compassion is enshrined as the driving force of global change, and young people demand a culture of we, not of me. Well, that's my vision for the future. Simply the ravings of an aging senior citizen. I think not. Because I think that with the right political will and system change, all the things I've outlined are possible. Now I know that we face unbelievable challenges in going there, unbelievable challenges. But what is happening over time is that all those challenges we can address. And I know when I was working on this talk, which in fact forms part of the Co-Ed Foundation's next book, Education for Survival, Compassion for Planet, I was very aware of all the emotions that I ran, the whole gamut. So for example, I started with rage, despair, grief, joy, love, and incredulity. Incredulity, because the evidence of climate change and species extinction, ecocide, is before our eyes. The planet is on fire, the Amazon burns, and the polar caps now melt at a rate that has surprised even the most pessimistic of scientific projections. And yet, we still have the deniers who actively and knowingly subvert the truth. We have the Trumps, the Bolsonaros, the Moreaus, the Murdochs, who together with their carbon industrial backers subvert the science and lie, totally impervious to all the suffering they're causing, and indifferent to the fact that their very actions have the potential to undermine the values for which our forebears fought and died. But they don't exist in a vacuum. Toxic leaders require colluding followers. Both peddle bad ideas, and those bad ideas become the conduit for damaging behaviours. Now, the bad idea in this case is the neoliberal worldview, which elevates the individual above society and idolises a growth, greed, consumerism, which is rapidly destroying our planet. And so, why am I so optimistic, therefore? Well, in spite of the fact that the neoliberal worldview is one which actually despises big government and says the market must decide, in spite of the fact that they say individual wealth creation will trickle down to the rest of us, what happens in fact, it's not trickle down, is it? It's gush up. So I'm still optimistic. Well, the Co-Ed Foundation has come up with 6 areas of optimism. And we render it simply under the term CREST, which actually stands for a whole range of things. Very simple acronym. The first one is compassion, love in action. What has happened since the millennium is there's been a revolution in our understanding and our take-up of the word compassion. Indeed, across the globe, more and more people who are becoming compassionate souls who demand change. They know intuitively that what we must begin to do is to fall in love with the planet again. Compassion normally is reckoned to have 4 component parts. Firstly, you've got to recognise it. When you recognise it, you've got to understand its causes. But more importantly now, the systems that create the suffering and continue to perpetuate the suffering. To do that, you need active determination. But to do that effectively, you need a practical wisdom. Now that's a wisdom, both of the mind, but also of the heart. Now, it's that old intelligence of the heart that drives young Greta Thunberg and the millions of young people involved in the climate strike and the Occupy movement. It also provides the passion and the fury for Extinction Rebellion, because they all intuitively know that ecocide is our suicide, and that in reality what has to happen is that we've got to start addressing these problems meaningfully. Second is religion, or more importantly, it's the spiritual and contemplative aspect of religion, which has always argued that the world is one and interrelated. We human beings are its stewards, not its rulers, and we must cherish the earth as a sacred place. The third is education and equality. The English and American education systems are dominated by this neoliberal paradigm, which elevates competition above collaboration and individualism above service. The work of the Co-Ed Foundation, however, exemplifies the compassionate skills, the compassionate attitudes, and the compassionate values that we must have if our young people are surviving the longer term. In fact, it would have taken a huge amount of effort to co-create not a national, not a global, but a planetary curriculum, a curriculum for survival. That curriculum must include aspects of equality, and in particular, the impact of climate apartheid, which is driving the world apart in different directions. The S is for science. Science, there are two aspects that I really want to talk about. The first relates to the fact that for the first time since the Enlightenment, Western science and religion speak with one voice. Indeed, back in the 70s, James Lovelace and Lynn Margulis actually hypothesized that the Earth itself was a living system that responded to external stimuli. Mystics have always argued that the Earth has a soul. It's called the anima mundi. We also know things about the science of the brain we didn't know before. So we know, for example, that the mind sculpts the brain, and what happens is that is conditioned by the experiences it actually receives. We also know that we are wired for compassion, but we're not hardwired. So put very simply, the more compassionate you are, the more compassionate you become. The more compassionate you become, the happier you are. The happier you are, the more you can achieve and attain. It is a virtuous circle. The T is for technology. We have old technology now. It's called trees. And we have the scorching sun and the raging winds and tempestuous seas, which when harnessed with the new green technologies, can reverse ecocide. It is perfectly possible. So what can we do then as individuals? Well, you'll be familiar, I'm sure, with at least 3 or 4 R's. You can reduce the carbon footprint. You can reuse materials. You can recycle. And of course you can increasingly refuse to buy goods and services which actually harm the planet. There's a 5th R, and that is rebel. Each one of us here present must become an eco-warrior who rebels against the system, but who rebel in the spirit of compassion of Gandhi and Mandela and Luther King. So let me summarise then, let me give you my take-homes finally, the 3 major points. Firstly, proclaim a climate emergency of the heart. Let compassion, love in action be your guide. Secondly, practice the 5 R's, especially rebel. Thirdly, promote a culture of we, not of me, and we can render all these simply and essentially in one phrase. Change the pronoun, save the planet.